Hi guys, welcome back to 40 Plus and Unfiltered. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about saving money. In fact, I'm going to be sharing with you 10 things that I do to help me save over £100 a month on my food shop. So first of all, I'm going to kick off with a little app called Olio. I'm sure some of you might have already heard about it, some not. It's been going for absolute years now, and it's basically a food sharing app. So on the app, people like me and you can share our food, share the things that we no longer want for free. Of course, we can sell things as well, but the main point is that they do have what they call food waste heroes that are connected to, say, local Tesco's, Asda, and some other supermarkets. And in the evening times, pretty much on a daily basis, they collect surplus food. You know, the food that gets reduced with the yellow stickers at the end of the day and is used by or best before of certain days. Because supermarkets are no longer legally allowed to sell that, the food waste heroes collect the surplus food and then they take it home, they put this on an app and they give this away for free. So this is a great way of being able to fight the food waste, because this is the food that otherwise is going to be going to waste. And of course, at the same time, guys, it will help you to save some money. It is really worth downloading the app and checking this out. The food waste heroes are pretty much around the country and in other countries as well. Of course, the collections are different in terms of what supermarket they collect from and what you get, but you can really expect anything from the bread to vegetables to ready meals to pretty much anything that's get left in the end of the day of the supermarket. So if you haven't checked out the app, have a look and hopefully you'll find yourself a local food waste hero. A little bit help, every little bit helps. So even if you be able to pick up some bread that is a surplus and then shove this in the freezer, it is going to be automatically, guys, saving you money along the way. So next thing is we're going to be talking about is the yellow stickers or red stickers, is whatever you shop. I refuse now to pay full price for anything that I buy, give or take, of course. We're talking about this stuff that gets reduced. We're talking about vegetables, we're talking about meat and other little bits and bobs like milk. So literally I found my best supermarket being Asda, and I normally go there straight after the school run. I drop the little one into school and then I pop into Asda, and straight the first thing I go to is going to be the reduced aisle when we're talking about the meats and other bits there, and then I'll move on to like the vegetable aisle, where they also have a lot of reduced things. So of course I totally understand that it is going to be different for where you shop, and the days or the times of the reduced food is going to be different for your local supermarket, but it is actually worth asking your local shop that you normally shop at to see what time they reduce their food, because generally they do have a set times and it's normally more than a couple of times a day. I know that my local Lidl also does that first thing in the morning, but you have to be there first to make sure that you are getting yourself some bargains. So the point is, right, as I said, being at the stage or the age that I am, I no longer sort of care or feel that I need to impress people. And basically before, in the younger age, I go to supermarkets and I feel a bit embarrassed to go and look at the reduced shelf, you know, for the food. But there's nothing wrong with that. The whole fact is that you can really save yourself a ton of money. And understand in the busy areas, you might not have such a huge amount of potentially reduced food sitting there at the time, because probably getting scooped up. But there's a high possibility that you might have a lucky day. And sometimes when I do pop into Asda, which I do on a fairly regular basis, I'm quite lucky to normally pick up some meats at pretty much half price. We're talking about the chicken, the mincemeat. The other day I picked up a duck for £3.62 for the whole duck. So of course this is the time when you can sort of stock up your freezer and shove this in there. Of course the big part of buying things on the deal is you have to make sure you do have the freezer. And how my shopping habits work is it takes a while to build up your freezer content. So when I'm saying to you, I now refuse to pay the full price for the meat or the chicken, anything that I buy, and I do really mean that, because I do have plenty of food in my freezer. So if there's nothing there as a bargain to be had, then I just simply won't buy it. I refuse to pay £8 for the 2 breasts of chicken. I just purely refuse. I might rather go without and eat vegetables than pay that sort of money. But luckily, with me having my strategy of shopping this specific way, I have enough food to get me through a few weeks or a few months, in fact, if there's no bargains available. Next one is we're talking about the budget brands. It is time, guys, if you're still buying the really expensive brands, that I suggest you swap. And I know there are some things people say that, well, certain bits taste a bit better. You know, we're talking about, say, the baked beans. A lot of people say that the main brand is better, but it is only better because actually you've got double the amount of sugar to some normal beans. But this is not the point. The point is you can save yourself an absolute fortune. If you just for a change go to whatever shop that you shop in and actually have a look at the thing you normally buy and then compare the price there is currently for a cheaper version. And you find out in many cases it is more than 4 times cheaper buying a cheaper supermarket version than buying a leading brand. And understand in certain areas you might refuse to sacrifice, but if you do want to save yourself some money, and this is what I do, I only buy the supermarket brands. Next one is trying to plan yourself meals throughout the week. And I don't mean this to the extent of regimentally having the same food every day, every week, like I know some people do. Just have a little plan ahead of you to what you think you might be having, depending, of course, on the days that you guys go shopping. See, I only have a vague idea of my weekly plan in terms of the food, but I do have an idea of what I would want to be having. And of course, a lot of that depends on the things you're currently kicking around in your fridge or freezer. Because the important part is as well, when we do trying to save some money, is to make sure that not a lot of food is going to waste. Because waste is a big thing for everybody. And I am guilty sometimes. We do have a lot of waste, but because I have chickens, it's not such a big problem for me. Because obviously somebody else in the end still gets to eat it. But the point is trying to have a vague idea of the plan. But at the same time, if you're doing your weekly shop, and if you see something that is on a deal in terms of the vegetables, then consider making a meal around that. Which brings me on to my next point, is buying seasonal. And we're talking, for perfect example, for this month, we're in October, is pumpkins. Pumpkins are now dead cheap. Be they are actually now pretty much, I think, almost double to the price they were last year. But nonetheless, for the volume or the amount of the meat or flesh that you get from pumpkins, is a very cheap option. And again, things like sometimes Lidl do vegetables. They do weekly deals on the fruits and veg in the beginning, like in the middle of the aisle. And again, it's a good way of stocking up on certain things and freezing them. Quite often, they run promotions on their peppers. They're massive red, green peppers, and they're sometimes selling them for like 34p. And if you pick them up, chop them up and freeze them, it actually works out cheaper for you to buy them fresh and freeze them than to buy them already frozen. And that's, guys, at the same time saving you money. So my point is, currently every month there is normally a produce that it is in the season, and it's generally quite a bit cheaper. So make this opportunity, experiment, cook different things. I've done this on my different channel when we done the pumpkin month, and we talked about doing the pumpkin soups. Well, obviously we're going to roast the pumpkin and we make a pumpkin gnocchi. There's a lot of things you can do, but the whole fact as well, guys, you can pick the stuff up on the deal now and then freeze that, which will save you money along the way. But next thing, guys, we're talking about loyalty cards. I know some people are against them because, well, they can monitor what we buy, how we buy, and in what sort of quantities. But in the end of the day, I don't think many of us can really afford not to use a loyalty cards. They are specifically designed to obviously gain the information from us to what we buy on a weekly and monthly basis. But we end up being trapped because a lot of times you compare to any loyalty card, be it at Tesco's or Asda, but mostly Tesco's in fact, and Morrison's ones, the price on some foods that are on the deal on the Tesco's Club card, it's almost half the price of a full price if you don't have it. And I know there are some people that don't have them and they refuse not to have it, but if we're talking about saving money, having one of those, unfortunately, is one of the things that you have to have. And I do have a Tesco's Club card, but I do save myself quite a pretty penny. As I said, they normally have, and I'm pretty sure you know, a lot of deals all the time for Club card members only. And again, gives you opportunity to stock up on certain things when those deals are currently running. Next thing, again, talking about the stocking up, is the bulk buying. Again, you know what you eat, what your family eats. We eat a lot of rice, we eat a lot of pasta, we eat a lot of grains. So rather than me picking up a small pack of, say, beans, the dry beans in Tesco's for £2.50, I'll go and spend £10 and buy myself 7 or 10 kilos of the beans. Because yes, of course, you have the initial outlay of buying yourself or spending £10 on, X amount of kilos of your beans. But the point is, those beans are going to last you far longer than a small packet that you're going to be buying in the supermarket. And next one, we're talking about the leftover nights. And no, guys, we're not talking about cooking your food and then you have some left for next day and doing the leftover. No, we're talking about the leftover night where basically open up the fridge and I'll see what I have. And then generally, I mentioned on the previous video, they would do a no-cook Friday. That means generally I try not to create a big main meal. We normally have some sort of snacks, nibbles, that sort of thing. And this is where the leftover night could come handy if you choose to do so. Is basically you open up the fridge and you see what you have left, or even in the freezer. Sometimes you have little bits and pieces kicking around. Like say in the freezer you might have just a handful of peas or a little bit of the ham left, or a little bit of anything else you have in a small quantity, there's not enough potentially to make a big main meal. And the same as in the fridge, you might have some things that are starting to go a little bit off or running out of date. So try to have a look and just to create maybe selection of meals. If you possible, you can create a normal sit-down big meal if you do have enough of things. But generally, consider making a selection of nibbles. And by nibbles, guys, I'm talking about maybe make a little ham quiche, make some vol au vents, just anything that you can possibly make out of the food you have, rather than just sitting there by itself of not being enough of it to make a main meal. Making a small selection of little foods, it's actually a good idea. And as I said, I'm doing this pretty much every Friday. Next one, of course, is batch cooking. And I do this a lot if, for example, I pick up some chicken on the deal. Quite often make my little one chicken nuggets, fresh chicken nuggets, not the nonsense you buy in the supermarket because it is literally full of shit. And I strongly suggest people too trying to make as much of their food as possible rather than buying the processed foods because A, yes, they are full of shit, and B, they're really, really expensive. So making us things like a chicken nuggets or anything else you can buy make stew, basically batch cooking is the good way forward. Say, for example, if you buy yourself pizzas, okay, if you do like pizzas for the week because it's quick and easy, well, rather than buying them, batch cook some pizza dough. So make dough, pre-packaged, and then put them in the freezer. So during a week, you can just sprinkle some cheese, tomato paste, whatever else you want to put on the top. Your dinner is ready. You can even go to the extent of actually pre-packaging them, loading your pizzas, and then freezing them. Of course, again, pizza might not be as easy or convenient because it does take time. But again, doing things like stews and soups, lasagnas, chili con carne, anything you can make as a batch, it will be much cheaper because generally when you buy things in bulk as well, it just works up cheaper anyway. And then of course, yes, you have to spend your time preparing this, but it will save you time and money on the long run. Next one, we're talking about the meat-free day. I know it's not overly popular in our household for the meat-free day, but it is something that we do fairly regularly. It's just nice sometimes just to have a really easy, simple beta salad or simple pasta without meat. Because again, meat is one of the most expensive things that is currently in the supermarket. It's pretty much doubled for the price for like mincemeat and the chicken since last year. And it's only going to be getting worse. So it's a good way of A, cutting down the meat, and then B, of course, saving you some money. And the last one, not the least, guys, is going to be like a bonus one. I'm going to be talking about the processed foods. Just avoid processed foods at all costs. I've done this on my different channel when I basically gone through to what's currently in the foods that we buy. They're not particularly overly that cheap neither. This is the whole point. They're just full of crap, and we don't really want to be eating those sort of things. So again, saving money. I rarely buy pre-done chips. I've done this only once, and I bought some French fries. Okay, this is because I just can't make them by hand. It just doesn't work for me. But things like the normal chips, I just don't buy them. You just make them. It is so much more cheaper. So if we're talking about paying like over, sometimes like £3-4 for a bag of chips. They're pre-fried in horrible oil and then just frozen. You might as well better just to spend yourself £1.09 and get yourself 1.5 kilos of potatoes and then chop them and just air fry them or deep fry them, whatever you want to do. It'd be better and cheaper for you. And it goes for many things. Like I said, the chicken nuggets, they have no chicken content whatsoever, apart from maybe chicken feet and some other stuff that they scrape off the floor when they make them. Things like pizzas, things like a microwave meals. All of that, it is very, very expensive, but also is really bad for you. I'm not here, guys, to preach the point about how unhealthy things are for you, but the point is, those things are all rather expensive, and try to cut them out of the diet by cooking fresh yourself where possible, or generally avoiding things like sugary pop that is quite expensive, like crisps, or just trying to cut this down. This is something that's going to be really, really saving you money. So the main things are, guys, we covered 10 and a bonus tip of what I do to save myself some money. And the whole thing, again, is that simplicity is the key. As I said, since turning the 40, you look at the things differently. The outlook on life is different. And now for some reason trying to just be a little bit more healthier. I wanted to eat a bit more healthier. I don't want to eat the processed foods. I don't want to eat all this nonsense because I know it's just there to get us. That's the whole point. It's the whole plan of the food industry. But this is that. This is my 10 points, guys, and a bonus point that I do to make sure that I save at least £100 a month. So anyway, guys, I hopefully have enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit long one, but I did say I do like the chat. But however, I do hope that you have actually find this at least helpful. So if you did, please don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.